Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Michelle Fondin and I'm the author of Help, I Think My Loved One is an Alcoholic, a survival guide for lovers, family, and friends. Available in paperback. Now today, if you're watching this today on October 16th, 2019, I'm actually offering it to you on Kindle for free, and I'll put the link below. Make sure that you subscribe and give the channel and video a thumbs up. Hit the bell for notifications. I have made a lot of playlists about alcoholism, addiction, and recovery. And if you are new to my channel, I will put those links at the end of the video. You'll see the little template at the end of the video with links to those videos as well as a 12-step study. Now, to give you a little bit of my background, I was in a relationship with an alcoholic for 6 years. I still very much love this person. He's a great person. He is not yet sober, but I made this book as a result of my relationship with him and just like being totally baffled by the disease of alcoholism. Therefore, I did a whole lot of research. I've sat in over 200 hours of Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, have sat in Al-Anon meetings, and Narcotics Anonymous meetings as well as I volunteered for a whole year at a rehab center. So I taught yoga at a rehab center. Now for my book, I interviewed 10 alcoholics in recovery. Alcoholism had to be their primary disease. And of course, in other videos, we talk about these co-occurring diseases as well. But alcoholism had to be their primary disease, with alcohol being their drug of choice. So I interviewed these 10 alcoholics for the book, and their stories, bits and pieces of their stories, are scattered throughout this book. And they had to be sober for at least 2 years and still attending AA in order to be interviewed for the book. I really wanted to see what aspects of recovery actually stuck. So being sober more than 2 years really helped me to understand. And some of them were sober like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Like some of them were just sober like 2 to 3 years. But I really wanted to understand the ins and outs of the disease of alcoholism. Therefore, I have done a ton of research. I've been in a relationship with an alcoholic. Now, I know some of you that are watching out there have actually grown up with alcoholic parents. Therefore, you guys are adult children of alcoholics, or ACOAs as we call them, or you are still children of alcoholics, and welcome, or still being in a relationship with an alcoholic, whether that person is your husband, wife, brother, sister, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, you happen to be in a relationship with an alcoholic. So today we're going to talk about what you should do when talking to an alcoholic and what you should do when you're in a relationship with an alcoholic in regards to understanding the behavior of alcoholism and how to act, react, and respond to them. A lot of times when we're in the midst of a relationship with an alcoholic, we don't understand what's going on, because as I talked about in one of my videos called like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, is that sometimes they're like normal everyday people. Like they act normal, they're very loving, affectionate, kind, compassionate. You can have a normal conversation with them, but once they get a drop of alcohol in their body, then they become a totally different person. And sometimes most alcoholics are able to conceal and hide their drinking really, really, really well. So let me give you an example. So when I was living with my alcoholic, he has had bits and pieces of sobriety throughout the past 2 years. So he acknowledges that he has a problem. He understands the problem of addiction. He understands the problem of alcoholism. He gets it. It is very hardwired in his genealogy and his family history, and therefore in his own self as well. So he's been an alcoholic for over 25 years. So it's really, really difficult for him to get sober and stay sober. And I understand that like that's a whole other video series on the willingness to get sober and stay sober and stay in recovery. What he told me that the disease is so rampant in their system, and they have so much shame surrounding it, and they have so much guilt surrounding it, and they don't understand all the time why they drink and why they choose to drink. It's the disease literally takes over their brain. And if you believe that alcoholism is not a disease, do not post any comments below, because it has been well documented that it is not only a mental illness, a mental disease, but it's also a physical disease and a psychological disease and a disease of relationship. Like there are so many documented evidence, like dating back to like 200, 300 years ago. There are so many studies that have been done on the disease of alcoholism and what it does to the brain. And if you don't believe me, I have some of that research in here that it actually modifies the brain. So, and obviously we're not just talking about alcoholism here. We are also talking about addiction in general, but in particular, I focus on alcohol and drug addiction because honestly, the personality changes that take place in those two diseases are the most stark because there is a substance in the body, right? So you can be addicted to your phone, you can be addicted to food, you can be addicted to porn, you can be addicted to gambling. There are so many things you can be addicted to, but alcohol and drugs are the two things that actually modify the brain the most, modify the chemistry of the body the most, and seem to have the most stark effects on the behavioral patterns that change distinctly after those drugs are put into the body. So when we talk about how they conceal and hide it, it's that there's so much shame surrounding the disease of alcoholism. There's so much shame in the alcoholics surrounding their behavior that they will try to hide it because they're just ashamed. A, they don't want to get caught. B, they don't want to hear the tirade of things that you might say to them and other family members and friends might say to them. They just don't want to hear it. And so they're really, really good at concealing it and hiding it. My alcoholic, what he said to me that he used to do, and I knew this, but I didn't know it, if you will. He would, like, there were so many things that he would do to conceal. But one of the things that he would do is he would drink when he wasn't with me. And he was able to hold his alcohol, meaning that he could drink a lot and he had a high tolerance level. So he was able to drink a lot and like not have a stark behavioral change, but there would be other behavioral changes that would take place. So he said he would go to the grocery store, buy and actually like eat a raw onion in the car before he came home or came to see me. And so that when I smelled his breath, it just smelled like onion, like raw onion. And I cannot stand the smell of raw onion. So I was like, oh my God, get away. Like, go brush your teeth. Like, I can't kiss you. And so he knew this. And so that was one of his tactics. So we're not talking about that particular thing about concealing the alcohol. But what we are talking about today is we're talking about the fact that alcoholics, they learn behavioral patterns and changes so that they are accepted by their family and friends. So they learn these behavioral patterns and changes. And throughout the course of their alcoholism, they learn better and better and better tactics. Now, I want you to know they're not doing this on purpose, meaning they feel so bad themselves. They feel worse about themselves than you could ever feel about them. Honestly, that is the honest to God truth. And that is through my experience of talking to so many alcoholics and addicts throughout the 200 hours of Alcoholics Anonymous meetings that I attended, through working with alcoholics and addicts in a rehab center for an entire year. So like they feel worse about themselves than you could ever feel about them. So just know that. What I want you to do though, when dealing with your alcoholic loved one, is really pay attention not to what they say, but to their behavior and to their actions. So you're really going to focus on their actions and you're not going to focus on their words at all until they are sober. And here's why. Alcoholics have a really, really good way, and you know this, you guys, you absolutely know this. They have a really good way of sweet talking you. Like they have a really, like most alcoholics have very, very charming personalities. They're usually very gregarious. They're very good at talking to people. They're really good with their words. They're very affectionate, loving, and kind when they want to be, when they want something. A lot of times this is two sides. Their manipulation tactics, because if they cannot properly manipulate people, they cannot get their alcohol and drugs. That's one reason. The other reason is because they genuinely have major self-esteem issues. One of the alcoholics that I interviewed for this book, Help, I Think My Loved One is an Alcoholic, his name is Weldon, and he's in the book, and he said, alcohol and drugs are like a paint stripper. So if you take a paint stripper and you're trying to scrape off layers of paint, he says that's what it does to your self-esteem. Like literally, it will scrape off every single layer of your self-esteem as an alcoholic or addict, and until there's nothing left. So the other reason why your alcoholic is able to sweet talk you into believing them, they're really good at it, and they're so incredibly convincing, is that they need to manipulate in order to get their drugs and alcohol, and then they have such low self-esteem that they really need you to be able to accept them and love them. Like, they do not love themselves. They hate themselves. Even if they say they love themselves, they really don't love themselves. There's like maybe a shred of love for themselves, but they have a lot of self-loathing, a ton of self-loathing. It's so bad. They really need you to love and accept them on one hand. On the other hand, they sweet talk because they're really good manipulators. Because if they cannot manipulate you into believing that they are not drinking and drugging, then they're not going to be able to drink and drug. Does that make sense? It's just a part of the disease. It's a part of the mental disease, right? It's part of that mental piece of that mental disease, is that the obsession is so strong. The chemistry in the brain that changes is so strong that they need it. They absolutely need it. They need it more than they need food. And you might even notice that your alcoholic or addict, when they are in the midst of drinking, that they won't eat. They don't crave food, they crave the alcohol. And then once they have the alcohol in their body, they don't want to water down the buzz. They don't want to water down the feeling, and that's why they don't eat. That's why most of them don't eat. Just pay attention. So I understand that, like, if you've been married to an alcoholic for a long time, or you have a boyfriend or girlfriend that's an alcoholic for a really long time, you kind of know what I'm talking about, because let's say they come back after a night of partying and they didn't come home all night, and you're really, really upset. You're so angry. You're so upset. They triggered you. They pushed all of your buttons, and they come home with their head held low, and they really sweet talk you, and they're telling you, like, yeah, I learned my lesson. Like, this is the absolute last time. I'm going to go to a meeting in the morning. Like, I really want to stop this. I don't want to. Like, they're so incredibly sincere that you totally believe them and you totally fall for it. And then lo and behold, like the next day they're out and drinking again, or even that night they're out drinking again, or they conceal it and they're out with their friends, or they get that phone call or something happens and they found that hidden bottle somewhere in the house and they're drinking again. So it can be really easy to get frustrated because you really want to believe them. Believe me, I've been there hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times where I so wanted to believe him. Like, I had such high expectations for him, and I loved him so much that I wanted to believe him. I really, really wanted to. I absolutely positively wanted to believe him. And so I did. Like, he would tell me these stories and I would believe him. And so then I was setting myself up for disappointment, because in the end, his actions never followed his words. His actions absolutely never followed his words. Now, his actions might have followed his words for like a half of a day or a day, but after that, it was always back to old patterns, and we were back on this merry-go-round that was never, ever ending. The only way you can truly believe you're alcoholic, as far as, are they serious that they recognize this as a problem? Are they coming out of denial? And are they willing to do the work in order to get sober and clean? The only way you can tell is through their actions. And you need to watch their actions, and you need to follow their actions in the sense of being the observer. I'm not talking about checking up on them. That's obsessive behavior that is self-destructive and not good for you. But I am talking about just observe them, watch their behavioral patterns. Are they calling up some buddies from AA if they've been before? Are they looking up on the internet centers to go to for rehab or detox, or are they going to AA meetings? Are they like looking up, where's the closest AA meeting near me? Are they praying more? Are they really doing transformational things that are going to help them get out of their addiction? Are they asking you for help? Are they help in the way of like, I really think I need to get to detox. Would you mind driving me in the morning? But they need to set up the detox. Are they actually showing up to the kids' baseball games, basketball games, football games? Like, are they doing the work to move forward and to get sober and clean? Or are they still stuck in the same patterns on one side with actions, and on the opposite side, are they telling you all the right things that you want to hear? Now, this goes as well as like giving you roses and giving you cards and buying you perfume, or you know, if it's a woman, if it's your wife, if she is she like cooking for you or dressing pretty or buying a new dress? Like, are they doing the things that you want them to do in order to get you to listen to them? So that is one thing you really need to pay attention to. And I know it's super duper hard, because when you love someone, you really want to believe them. You sincerely want to believe them. And this disease of alcoholism and addiction is just so bad on every level, as far as like being manipulative and being very, very deceiving. Know that it's not the person, it's the disease. Know that your loved one is not doing this on purpose to hurt you. They're really not. Like, in the end, they're really hurting themselves, and most of them have no clue how to get out of it. Even if there are resources available and help available, many of them, because of the programming of the brain and the way the brain works in addiction, many of them think that if they stop drinking or drugging, that they will die. And this is something that it's been something that is in the programming that I've heard time and time again, is that their greatest fear is that if they stop drinking and drugging, then they will die. So if you think about it, they want to avoid death, so they keep drinking and drugging, even though drinking and drugging will lead them to death, right? So it's this, like I said, it's this vicious, vicious, vicious cycle. So I hope this helped give you some perspective today. If you're dealing with an alcoholic loved one from day to day, just know that there is help out there for you as well. I'm not a big fan of Al-Anon. I know you guys have probably seen that in previous videos. It's a great place to start. The literature for Al-Anon is fabulous. It's really, really good literature. I'm not a big fan of the meetings. I like Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. Interestingly enough, I'm not an alcoholic, never was. But I really do like AA better than Al-Anon. There are a lot of resources. YouTube has a ton of resources. There's a lot of community that you can create here. Read my book, check it out. And what I will do, if there are enough requests on this topic, to do a Q&A on loving an alcoholic and alcoholism, recovery, addiction, sobriety, all of those topics. If there's enough interest to do a live Q&A on YouTube, please put it in the comments section below. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. Share this video with other families of alcoholics that could possibly help them. Thank you so much for your support of this YouTube channel by buying a book or 2 or 3, going to my Amazon store and checking it out. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.